The auditorium was full. There were perhaps 300 or 400 students there. The school asked the students in the various allied health professions to attend a lecture on the latest developments in neurological research, brain science. Lectures of this kind were not that unusual, and most of us learned something from them. The man on stage wore a white lab coat, middle-aged, well-groomed, and there were a number of machines on stage, as well as a chalkboard and a large screen where images were projected and an outline presented. The professor began his lecture by outlining his main points and telling us that the lecture would last about 40 minutes. Neurological research had come a long way in just a few years, and he reviewed its history. He also demonstrated how electrodes were placed on the human head and how they read brainwaves. Brainwaves were indicative of many things, and he reviewed those. Emotions, behaviors, even colors, a lot of detail. The latest research initiatives. He had a device that emitted light, and this was connected to another device that was keyed to the various brainwave types. While the precise details do escape me, it was clear that each brainwave type, alpha, beta, gamma, etc., was associated with a color and other characteristics. Some of us had already studied neuro and were somewhat familiar with the topic. At one point in the lecture, the professor turned on this light-emitting device and asked the audience whether they saw the color associated with the alpha wave. It may have been yellow. Hands went up. As for beta waves, they were associated with certain other emotions and the color blue. Did everyone see blue? All hands went up. And lastly, the gamma wave, which showed on the large screen as a wave and was associated with certain emotions, and I think the color orange. Hands went up all around. Could the students see what researchers had proved? Yes, indeed, they had. The lecture concluded with a summary of what had been presented, and the professor asked, almost parenthetically, at the end, that on occasion there were people who did not see any colors at all, which always intrigued the researchers, and they found that very interesting and a bit unusual. Were there any audience members who did not see the colors associated with the brain waves? Silence. This was a very difficult moment for me. I waited a bit to see if anyone else raised their hand. Not a hand was raised. With great trepidation and just a bit of courage, I raised my hand. The professor must have had very good eyes because I was in the very back of the auditorium and I was hoping he would not notice. He did notice. He said, "Young man," and in those days I was a young man, "if you did not see colors, what exactly did you see?" I told the truth as I saw it. I said, "I did not see any colors at all, only the color white. The light on stage appeared to me to be just an ordinary strobe light that you might see at a disco or at a concert." The professor took a moment and shook his head. "No colors." "Nope." "Well, young man, you're the only person in this audience that sees reality, because this is not a lecture on neurology at all. That was a cover for this lecture. This is an experiment in mass hysteria. We thank the administrators of your school for permitting us to do this experiment. We thank you for participating. The young man is correct. This is an ordinary strobe light, and we had the hypothesis that under the right conditions, people can be made to believe things that are completely untrue, even those things before their very eyes. We hope and trust that this will be a learning experience for you, and that you will learn to trust your instincts, regardless of what others may say. Thank you very much for participating," and with that, the professor strode off the stage. On reflection, that had to be one of the proudest moments of my life, to see things as they are and to be unafraid to say so. At the same time, I have to believe that many others, and perhaps even most of those students in the audience, had serious doubts about the professor's assertions, but were too fearful or shy to say so. We live in a time of corporate media propaganda, what Chomsky calls the manufacturing of consent. It requires us to see reality and not be dissuaded from seeing what others may tell us we see.